Hello, and welcome to the 2019 Grants for Outreach and Services to Underserved Populations. I have a disclaimer for you. The free information we provide in this webcast is based on our interpretation of the grant announcement. The viewer, you, is advised that the publicly published grant announcement and the funding agency are the final authority on this subject grant. I would love to tell you a bit about myself. I am your presenter, Sarita Gibbons. I am the owner for Comprehensive Grants Management. I have been providing successful grant writing services for over 12 years with an average 65% grant writing success rate. My hobbies are reading, painting, keyboarding, and gardening. Our firm, Comprehensive Grants Management, provides additional value to clients by providing free online webcasts, such as this one, about currently available grant funding opportunities. We are a full-time, full-year grant writing firm, and I have provided our website for you below, and we welcome you to visit our website to learn a bit more about our grant writing firm. Today's webcast will be about the 2019 Grants for Outreach and Services to Underserved Populations. This grant is issued by the U.S. Department of Justice, the Office of Violence Against Women. I have provided for you below the URL where you will find additional grant application information assistance. Eligible applicants are population-specific organizations, nonprofits, non-governmental organizations that primarily serves members of a specific underserved population and has demonstrated experience and expertise providing targeted services to members of that specific underserved population. Also, the funding agency stated that an eligible applicant is a victim service provider. So DEF programs are disability program subtypes only. So that's nonprofits again, non-governmental or tribal organizations or rape crisis centers, including a state or tribal domestic violence and or sexual assault coalition that assists or advocates for domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. The funding agency stated that applications must also be one of the subtypes listed below to apply for this program. So the first is the LGBT organizations, meaning an organization for which the primary purpose of the organization as a whole is to serve LGBT individuals. The second is religious minority organizations, meaning an organization for which the primary purpose of the organization as a whole is to serve members of a religious minority who face barriers as accessing and using victim services. The third is DEF programs, meaning a program that is run by and for deaf individuals. The program may be a standalone deaf domestic violence or sexual victim service provider, a general deaf services nonprofit, non-governmental organization, or a deaf domestic violence or sexual violence program administratively housed in a hearing victim service provider. And the fourth is disability programs, meaning a victim service provider or organization serving victims with disability that has received 2 continuation award under the Office of Violence Against Women Training and Services to End Violence Against Women with Disabilities Grant Program. So these are the eligible applicants, and remember, applicants must also be in one of the subtypes listed, as I explained earlier. The purpose of this grant is to develop and implement outreach strategies targeted at adult or youth victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking in underserved populations, and to provide victim services to the victims. If you are an eligible applicant for this grant and the purpose of the grant is aligned with the services of your organization and you would like us to write this grant for you, please give us a call at 813-949-2877. You can also send us an email at grants@comprehensivegrants.com and let us know that you would like to apply for the grants for outreach and services to underserved populations. The funding agency has given us some other program eligibility requirements. So in addition to meeting the eligible entity requirements, applications for this program must also meet the requirements listed below. All certifications and other eligibility related documents must be current and developed in accordance with this solicitation, with this grant announcement. So for required partnerships, projects should include organizations necessary to meet the goals of the proposed project. All applicants must have at least one formal project partner to meet one of the following categories as it relates to partnership requirements. So category 1, the applicant has at least 3 years of demonstrated experience and expertise in providing population-specific services in the relevant underserved communities, working in partnership with, at a minimum, one other organization. Category 2, the applicant is a population-specific organization that has less than 3 years of demonstrated experience and expertise in providing population-specific services in the relevant underserved community, working in partnership with, at a minimum, a victim service provider. If you're in category 3, the applicant is eligible as a disability program and includes a multidisciplinary partnership comprised of, at a minimum, the following: either at least one victim service provider and at least one nonprofit, non-governmental organization, or tribal organization serving individuals with disabilities or a deaf individuals. So these are additional program eligibility requirements, and please endeavor, if you're category 1, category 2, or category 3, that you have the proper partnerships in place in order to maintain your eligibility status and possibly win one of these grants. The funding agency has provided some key grant definitions that you must understand about this grant program. So the term underserved populations means populations who face barriers in accessing and using victim services, and includes populations underserved because of geographic location, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, underserved racial and ethnic populations, populations underserved because of special needs, such as language barriers, disability, alienage status, or age. Also, the term population-specific services means victim-centered services that address the safety, health, economic, legal, housing, workplace, immigration, confidentiality, or other needs of victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking, and that are designated primarily for and are targeted to a specific underserved population. So it's really important for you to know the types of population-specific services that the funding agency wants you to provide under this grant program. And let me repeat them for you. Safety, health, economic, legal, housing, workplace, immigration, confidentiality, and other needs of these victims. So those are the supportive services that the funding agency wants you to provide. The purpose areas for these grants, as explained by the funding agency, the funding agency stated that funds under this program must be used for the purpose of providing or enhancing population-specific outreach and services to adult and youth victims in one or more underserved populations. And this should include working with federal, state, tribal, territorial, and local government agencies and other agencies to develop or enhance population-specific services. So what that means is that any community partnerships that you can establish or coordinate to help you to deliver the specific services that has been identified for you, any community partner that you can work with to bring those services to the victims, that is highly encouraged. The second purpose area is strengthening the capacity of underserved populations to provide population-specific services. The third purpose area is strengthening the effectiveness of criminal and civil justice interventions by providing training for law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, and other court personnel on domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking in underserved populations. So any development of training that you can do to educate these stakeholders in the court system, that would be greatly appreciated and a purpose area. The fourth purpose area is working in cooperation with an underserved population to develop and implement outreach, education, prevention, and intervention strategies that highlight available resources and the specific issues faced by victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking from underserved populations. The funding agency has stated that these are the four purpose areas. The funding agency has given us two priority areas. The first is to reduce violent crime against women and promote victim safety. The second is to increase the response to victims of sexual assault, and that includes sex trafficking. In order to meet this priority, a minimum of 75% of the project must focus on addressing sexual assault, including sex trafficking. Activities can include victim services and training to improve law enforcement response and prosecution. Projects must also identify how they will engage in outreach to victims of sexual violence and, if applicable, sex trafficking, and tailor services to address the unique needs of these victims. The funding agency says that they encourage applications proposing activities in this area to be given special consideration. So if you want to be given special consideration, make sure that you address these priority areas. The funding agency stated that the grant due date is February the 13th, 2019. Does anyone think that it's actually a Friday? Friday the 13th? Well, it isn't. It's actually a Wednesday. That's just my quirky sense of humor there. So make sure that you submit your applications on time. To the funding agency, it is February the 13th, and it's actually the day before Valentine's Day. So this could be a great gift that you give yourself for Valentine's Day, is to submit your grant applications into the funding agency on time. The period of performance for this grant is 3 years, 36 months. The estimated project start date is October the 1st, 2019, and the estimated project end date is October the 1st, 2022. The funding agency stated that the estimated number of awards is 10, so that means that approximately 10 applicants will be awarded this grant. I am happy to announce that this program has no match or cost share requirement. The grant award amount is up to $450,000 for the entire 36 months. So that means that an applicant can request up to $450,000. That is the funding limitation, $450,000. The funding agency does have some funding limitations. These are unallowable costs, and you should not include them in your grant budget. The first is lobbying costs and lobbying expenses, then fundraising, purchase of real property, that is buildings and real estate, land. You should not purchase any type of real property. Physical modifications to buildings, including minor renovations such as painting and carpenting. You should not allocate funding in your grant budget for that. Construction costs, no construction costs are allowed. A funding agency does state that they may approve the use of grant funds to provide a working meal at a meeting, conference, training, or other event, because sometimes meals are not allowed, but they do say here that they may approve the use of grant funds to provide a working meal. The funding agency has provided for us some out-of-scope activities, and these activities listed are out of the program scope, and they will not be supported by the program's funding. So the first is research projects. This does not include program assessments conducted only for internal improvement purposes. So what they're saying here is that if you have assessments to be done to figure out how to improve your internal processes so that you can improve upon the grant program and make sure you're operating it as effectively and efficiently as possible, then that's allowed, but research projects, that is not allowed. The second is activities and services for children under the age of 11, except when providing ancillary services to a victim's child's because there is a need and connection to providing victim services for the parent. So if the parent is being provided services, then by just providing the service to the parent, in essence, sometimes you can be providing services directly to the child because the parent is the parent of the child. So examples, funds may be used to provide services to children of battered clients residing in a shelter. The third is legal services for victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, or stalking beyond the limited context of protection order proceedings, either temporarily or long-term relief, or for limited immigration matters that may impact and affect the victim's ability to maintain safety, such as the U visas. So while they'll allow limited legal services, they do not expect you to be providing the full gambit of legal services. And also, if you need to provide legal assistance to uh, participants, there's another grant program that you can apply for, and it's called the Legal Assistance for Victims Grant. And that particular grant is currently out and available, and it provides a broad spectrum of legal issues that victims encounter, including family matters such as divorce, child custody, child support, immigration, and administrative agency proceedings, and also consumer matters and housing matters. So if you do need to provide a more comprehensive legal service, you can apply for the Legal Assistance for Victims grant that is also available. But it's out of scope for you to be providing comprehensive legal services under this grant. The fourth is Sexual Assault Forensic Medical Examiner programs. This is out of scope for this grant. The fifth is population-specific services unrelated to the population experiencing sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. So you have to be population-specific. This is a great grant indeed, but if you're not serving victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, or stalking, it's out of the scope of this grant program. Number six, out-of-scope activities involve training, outreach, education, prevention, and public awareness not directly linked to providing or enhancing population-specific services. So if you're doing the training, outreach, education, but it's not for victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, dating violence, or stalking, these are the targeted underserved populations, then it's not eligible. So you must be providing services to the population, the targeted population. Number seven is nationally or regionally focused projects. So you must have a smaller scope. You must be in a specific area. It cannot be nationally or regional. Number eight is hosting or presenting at national or regional conferences. So that is also out of scope. The funding agency was very specific, and they have stated applications that propose activities that are deemed to be substantially out of scope may receive a deduction in points during the review process and may be eliminated from consideration entirely. So please make sure that you do not include these out-of-scope activities. Listening to an underserved population is how you begin to understand them and serve them better. It's decision time, and I'm here to help you to decide if you would like to apply for one of these grants. So I have some questions for you. I have 3 questions that will aid you in making a decision. So are you eligible for this grant? So we went over the eligibility criterion. You must decide if you're eligible for this grant. This grant is pretty easy because if you're an eligible applicant, but you need a particular capacity to make your application stronger, you can partner with a community partner, and through their ability, you will enable yourself to make your grant application stronger because you will use your partner's capacity. So if you, as the applicant, does not necessarily have the experience, you can partner with a community partner that does have the experience, and by virtue of being their partner, you will gain their capacity. So this is really easy for you to answer yes to. Are you eligible for this grant? Do you have a need for this grant? I believe every organization, or I should say every community, has a need for this grant. So I think, yes, you do have a need for this grant. Do you want to apply for this grant? So this is a question that you must answer. The due date is February the 13th. And so if you do not have the capacity in-house to apply for the grant yourself, that's when you can outsource the grant to a grant writing firm to assist you. If you've answered yes, well, congratulations. You are one step closer to applying for up to $450,000 for 3 years. That is the maximum grant award. Thank you so very much for spending the time with me in this webcast to go over the 2019 grants for outreach and services to underserved populations. It was my honor and a privilege to present this webcast to you. I would love to get some feedback from you. Please let me know how this webcast had helped you and if it assisted you to understand the grant a little better and assisted you and or your team to complete the grant application package. If you are decided that you would like to apply for the grant, but you do not want to do it yourself in-house, well, that is why Comprehensive Grants Management exists. We are a full-time, full-service grant writing firm, and we work with clients nationwide, and we would be most happy to work with you. Remember, we have a 65% grant writing success rate, and we would be most happy to serve you. Please give us a call at 813-949-2877 or grants at comprehensivegrants.com and let us know that you would like to apply for the grants for outreach and services to underserved population. Again, thank you so very much for spending the time with me on this webcast, and I look forward to having you in my next webcast.